Hello, ladies and gentlemen, this is Mrs. Gallagher, and tonight's notes are an introduction to functions. So, a function is a special relation, and a relation is a coordinate, it's your x and your y value, in which each member of the domain is paired with exactly one member in the range. So, a function is a special relation in which each member of the domain is paired with exactly one member in the range. So now what's a domain? Your domain is your x value. Your x value. It's also known as an input value and an independent variable. So your domain is your x value, your input, and your independent variable. The range is your y value, also known as your output and dependent variable. So your range is your y value, it's your output, and it's your dependent variable. These are all terms that you need to know for this chapter. So what exactly is a domain and a range? Well, if you have an ordered pair, your x and your y, your domain is your x value. So that's also your input and your independent variable. And your y is your range, which is also your output and your dependent variable. So now, how can you tell if it's a function? So how can you tell if the relation is a function? Very simply, if the x value does not repeat, it is a function. So if the x value does not repeat, it is a function. So now let's look at some examples to see what functions look like. So let's do some examples. It says, identify the domain and range of each relation below. Then determine if the relation is a function. So in number 1, we have ordered pairs. -10, -34, 0, 22, 10 and 9, and 20 and 3. And your domain are your x values. So let's circle our x values. We have -10, 0, 10, and 20. So our domain, we're going to write it as, with a bracket, -10, 0, 10, and 20. Those are our domains. Those are our inputs. They're our x values. Next, you want to identify the range. So your range is your y value. -34, 22, 9, and 3. So a bracket, -34, 22, 9, and 3. Make sure you put it in a bracket. So your last question is asking you, is it a function? So how do we determine if it's a function? If the x value does not repeat. Well, if you look here, do we have any repeated x values? No, they're all different. Therefore, yes, it is a function. Yes, it is a function. So now let's look at example 2. We want to identify our domains, our x value. So we have -10, -10, 10, and 20. So we're going to put in the bracket. We have a -10 as our first domain, comma, -10. You don't need to repeat it twice, just write it one time. Then we have 10, and we have 20. So our domain is -10, 10, and 20. You don't need to write it more than one time. If it's there just once, you write it just one time. So now our ranges, let's identify them. It's our y value. So we have 9, 22, -9, and 3. So we have 9, 22, -9, and 3. Remember to use your bracket. And then lastly, is it a function? So do any x values repeat? Well, we have two -10s. So if an x value repeats, then it is not a function. So no, it is not a function. Let's look at example 3. Notice we have a table now. So in our table, we want to find our domain, range, and just identify if it's a function. So if you look here, here are x values. Therefore, it's our domain. So we're going to write down our x values, which are 4, -1, 0, 1, and 9. These are your x values. They're your domain. Now our ranges are our y values, your y values. So let's write our y's. Make sure you use a bracket. -5, -10, -9, -7, and 1. And now you want to ask yourself, is it a function? Look at your x values. Do we have any repeaters here? No, we don't. So therefore, yes, it is a function. Yes, it is a function. Let's look at number 4. Again, let's identify our domain. Remember, your domain is your x value. So your domain is, use your brackets, 2, 5, 3, -4, and then we have a 5 again. We already wrote down 5, so only need to write it down one time, and then end with your bracket. Then you have your y value. Your range is 7, -3, 5, -2, and 2. And end it with the bracket. And then you want to say, is it a function? Do you have any repeaters? Well, we do. 5 repeated twice. We have 2 5s. Therefore, when the x repeats, it is not a function. So your answer is no. Let's do 2 more examples. So in problems 5 and 6, these are called mapping problems. So these are called mapping problems. And in mapping problems, you want to identify the ordered pairs. So we want to identify the ordered pairs. We have to write down our ordered pairs. So if you look here, we start, it goes from 1 to 5. Therefore, your first ordered pair is 1 and 5. Okay, so your first column, this is your x, and your second column is your y. Let's look at the next one. We go from 2 to 4. So your second order pair is 2 to 4. Our next order pair is 3 to 6. So we're going to write 3 to 6. And now you can identify your domains. Our domain is your x value, which is 1, 2, and 3. So we're going to write 1, 2, and 3. And your range is your y value, which is 5, 4, and 6. So 5, 4, and 6. And then, is this a function? Is it a function? Yes, it is. All x values are different. No x values repeats. So yes, it is a function. Let's look at number 6. Our first step is you want to identify our ordered pairs. So 3 to 8 is our first ordered pair. Our second order pair is 5 to 7. Our third order pair is 7 to 8. And our last order pair is 7 to 9. Okay, remember your first column is your x, your second column is your y. So now, what's our domain? Remember, use your brackets, and your x values here are 3, 5, 7, and 7. We already wrote down a 7, so we just need one 7. End your bracket. And then our ranges are 8, 7, 8. We already wrote down 8. We don't need it again. And then 9. And then end your bracket. And then your last step, is this a function? Well, we have 2 7s that repeat. Therefore, no, it is not a function. So now what I'd like you to do is the you try section. Please complete problems 1, 2, and 3, and we will discuss it in class. Thank you.